going to discuss Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution, that is, the Legislative Department. If you would notice, Article 6 is where we begin to talk about the different branches of the government, namely the legislative, the executive, and the judicial department. Today we're going to discuss the legislative department. When we say legislative department, this is basically the lawmaking body of the state. It is that branch of the government which has the power to make laws. Specifically, legislative power is the power to make, alter, and repeal laws. This so-called legislative power is vested in the Congress, which consists of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Here we have Section 1 of Article 6, and from this provision we can already tell that the state adopts a bicameral legislative system, meaning we have two branches or chambers in our legislative body. The counterpart of this is the unicameral system, which I will discuss in a bit. So what exactly are the advantages of a bicameral legislative system? Here we have a list, which is pretty straightforward, so you can just go ahead and pause this video if you want to make notes. The counterpart of the bicameral legislative system is the unicameral legislative system, which means having a single legislative chamber. So instead of having both the Senate and the House of Representatives, we only have one. And again, you may pause this video if you wish to take this down. We've already discussed the definition of legislative power and to whom it is vested upon. Now we will discuss the different kinds of legislative power. Generally, we have two. The first of which is the original legislative power, that possessed by the sovereign people. Remember that in the Declaration of Principles and State Policies, that is Article 2, we stated that sovereignty resides in the people and that all government power emanates from them. Next is the derivative legislative power, where the sovereign people delegate their power to the legislative bodies. This power is subordinate to the original legislative power, and this is the type of power that is vested in Congress. Other than those two powers we've talked about, legislative power may also be classified into two more categories. First, we have the constituent power, which is, from the name itself, constituent. We can easily remember that this is the power to amend the Constitution. Lastly, we have the ordinary power, which is the power to pass ordinary laws. It is important to take note that the power of Congress is plenary or absolute, meaning Congress may legislate on any subject matter it so wishes, no matter how bizarre the subject might be. The question is, are there any limitations to this power of Congress? The answer is yes, there are two: the substantive limitation and the procedural limitation. The substantive limitation is a limitation in the content of the law that is to be passed. Basically, it limits what is in the law. For example, no law impairing the freedom of speech may be passed, or a law which infringes religious freedom. Meanwhile, when we say procedural limitation, this refers to a limitation in the manner or procedure by which the law is passed, which is why it's called as procedural limitation, because it relates to the procedure. For example, a bill must generally be approved by the President before it becomes a law. So in essence, Congress may legislate on any subject so long as it does so within the procedural and substantive limitations. Given that, may Congress delegate its legislative power? As a general rule, no. Legislative power must always remain where the people have lodged it to be. But since this is only a general rule, there are exceptions. First, we have delegation of power to the local government units, and second, where the Constitution itself so provides. It is important to note that the power that is delegated to these administrative agencies is only to the extent allowed by Congress. Furthermore, what is delegated is not the lawmaking power per se, but rather the rule-making power or law execution. Earlier, we said that the Congress consists of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Let's discuss these two houses one by one, starting with the Senate. The Senate is composed of 24 senators, and to become a senator, there are 5 essential requisites. 1. You must be a natural-born citizen. Second, you must be at least 35 years old on the day of the elections. So you may be less than 35 years old when you file your certificate of candidacy, but on the day of the election itself, you must be 35 years old. Third, you must have the ability to read and write. Fourth, you must be a registered voter. And fifth, you must be a resident of the Philippines for at least 2 years immediately preceding the election. The term of office for senators is 6 years, and unless otherwise provided for by law, it commences or begins at 12 noon on June 30 next following their election. A senator cannot serve for more than 2 consecutive terms. Basically, he can serve for more than 2 terms, like 3, 4, 5, whatever, just not consecutively. And any voluntary renunciation of the office by the senator shall not be considered as an interruption of his service. So that's it for the Senate. Next, we discuss the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is composed of 250 members, that is, unless otherwise provided for by law. In other words, you can have more than 250 members in the House if the law will so provide. These 250 members are to be elected from the legislative district, and they shall be apportioned or allocated among provinces, cities, and metropolitan Manila area. And this apportionment or allocation shall be done in accordance with the number of the provinces, cities, or the Manila area's respective inhabitants, and on the basis of a uniform and progressive ratio. The reason for such manner of apportionment or allocation is because of the so-called equality of representation, which is a basic concept in republicanism. The House of the Representatives shall also be composed of those who shall be elected through a party list system of registered national, regional, and sectoral parties or organizations. To become a member of the House, 5 essential requisites must be present. You must be a natural-born citizen, at least 35 years old on the day of the elections, have the ability to read and write, a registered voter in the district where you intend to be elected, and you must be a resident of the Philippines for at least 1 year immediately preceding the election. In essence, the requirement for senators is similar to the requirements for members of the House of the Representatives, apart from the requisite of residency, because senators must have resided in the Philippines for at least 2 years, while members of the House must have resided herein for only 1 year, at least 1 year before the day of the election. The term of office for members of the House is 3 years, and unless otherwise provided for by law, it commences or begins at 12 noon on June 30, next following their election. A member of the House cannot serve for more than 3 consecutive terms. So again, he can serve for more than 3 terms, just not consecutively. And any voluntary renunciation of the office by the member of the House shall not be considered as an interruption of his service. We can classify the members of the House into 2 groups, the district representatives and the party list representatives. The district representatives represent the congressional districts, and the party list representatives are those elected through the party list system. And they compose 20% of the total number of representatives in the House. Before, we had the so-called sectoral representatives. These were, however, replaced by the party list representatives because of the similarity in the nature of their function. Hence, when Section 5, Paragraph 2 provided the coded statement in here, it was in effect slowly eradicating the existence of the sectoral representatives. For the legislative district, as far as practicable, it shall comprise of a contiguous, compact, and adjacent territory. Take note that the cities with a population of at least 250,000 shall have at least 1 representative, and so does each province, regardless of population. For lack of a better picture, just please pretend that this is a province. More things to remember: the creation of a legislative district does not need the confirmation by a plebiscite or the vote of the electorate. You only need the confirmation of the plebiscite if the creation of a legislative district involves the creation of a local government unit So that's it for legislative districts. Let's now discuss party list representatives. How does one become a party list representative? How does the system work? First, registered national, regional, and sectoral parties or organizations submit a list of candidates arranged in the order of priority. Such parties are then voted for at large during congressional elections, and whoever garners the most number of votes will get a seat. Take note that the number of seats they may get out of the 20% total is only 3, and the number of seats they will get will depend on the number of votes they get nationwide. For the 3 seats, one shall be the qualifying seat, and the other 2 the additional seats. To be elected as a party list representative, these 6 requisites must concur, namely, person must be a natural-born citizen, must be at least 25 years old on the day of the elections, and in the case of the youth sector, at least 25 but not more than 30. Must have the ability to read and write, a registered voter, a resident of the Philippines for at least 1 year, and a bona fide member of the organization for at least 90 days preceding the day of the election. That's it for the discussion of the 2 houses of Congress. Now, we should ask, when do we elect members of the Congress? The answer is that it depends. If it's a regular election, members of the Congress are elected on the 2nd Monday of May, and this holds true unless otherwise provided for by law. If it's a special election, it will depend upon the discretion of Congress, meaning it is not mandatory to fill in a vacancy, and it is up to the Congress to decide whether it will conduct a special election to fill in such vacancy. And such special election is to be made in the manner prescribed by law. The senator or member of the House then elected shall only serve for the unexpired term. For example, the term of a senator lasts for 6 years. If a vacancy occurs in the Senate on the 4th year and a special election is called to fill in such vacancy, the senator thus elected will only be serving for 2 years. Next, salary. Article 12, Section 17 provides that members of the Congress shall have a salary of 204,000 pesos per annum. Any increase in salary shall take effect only after the expiration of the full term of all members of the Congress who approved such increase. For example, Senators 1 to 24 served for 3 years. House of Representatives 1 to 250 served for 1 year. Subsequently, a salary increase was agreed upon by all of them. Now, this salary will only take effect after the expiration of the term of all the members who approved the increase. While they are restricted from increasing their salary, they are, however, allowed to change or tack emoluments or fees that do not form part of their salary. In other words, if the fee is not part of their salary, they may increase or decrease the same. It is only the compensation, which is the salary, which is immediately prohibited by law. That's all, folks. Stay tuned for more CONSLAW reviewers brought to you by Ley La Salle.